Hey guys, how are you? Nice to see you all again. In this video, I'll be talking about two specific things. The first is what are the different kinds of masks that are available and who is a good candidate for what kind of a mask. The second thing that we'll talk about are some tips and tricks that you can do as you start on this journey to get used to CPAP, and what are some things that you should be aware of. Okay, so the different kinds of masks and some tips and tricks for you to be successful with CPAP. So let me go ahead and minimize my screen and let's jump right in. So the way that I've sort of laid this out in terms of the different masks are masks that are the least obtrusive to the masks that are the most obtrusive. Less obtrusive does not mean better, and more obtrusive does not mean worse. This is just the nature of how the mask interfaces with you. And some people who are claustrophobic, they may want something that is less obtrusive, versus someone who is not as claustrophobic but likes the feel of a certain kind of a mask. They may do well with like a more obtrusive kind of mask, like a full face mask, and we're going to go through all of these different things. In the process of selecting a mask, the things to sort of be thoughtful of, one is, are you a mouth breather or a nasal breather? And ideally, if you are a mouth breather, one should want to start to try to learn how to breathe through their nose if they can. And if they have chronic nasal congestion, that needs to be addressed separately, and there's a separate video for that. Because we want people breathing through their nose as best as we can. I have another video where I talk about mouth breathing versus nasal breathing and how that influences sleep and breathing, and we'll put the link in the notes below. But anyways, first we need to figure out, are you a mouth breather or a nose breather or both? Because nose breathing is better, and it will also be conducive to hopefully using a less obtrusive mask. So let's talk about these different masks. So the first one is a nasal cradle mask. This is a mask that sits underneath the nose, and as you can see, it comes in different sort of shapes and sizes. The key distinction is, does the hose come off the top of the head or does the hose come off the front of the face? Some people like it coming off the front of the face or the tip of the nose. Some people like it over the top of the head. I don't have a preference. I think that when it comes off the top of the head, the likelihood of it getting in your way is a little bit less, but that's just my personal opinion. And you have to, usually people will go through a couple of different masks before they find the one that they like. So this is a nasal cradle mask. It sits below the nose, and this is the least obtrusive kind of mask. And different companies have different styles and designs, but you get the idea. The second kind of a mask is a little bit more obtrusive. It's called a nasal pillow mask. In this kind of a mask, there are these two tiny prongs that sort of sit inside the nose, and these prongs kind of insufflate to help create a better seal. Some people like these masks because it allows one to have a very good seal, but some people don't like them because they feel it irritates the inside of their nose. So again, we kind of have to try them to see which one to try them to see which one you feel comfortable with. And it is, in my anecdotal experience, people will typically go through 2 to 4 different masks before they find one that they actually feel is a good mask to use for a long-term solution. So this is a nasal pillow mask. It goes kind of inside the nose, and again, you can see the hose can either come off the top of the head or the front of the face. The third kind of a mask is called a nasal mask. This is a very commonly used mask as well. You can see how this covers the nose in its entirety. We don't have a picture of it here, but you can see how this is a pure silicone interface. These interfaces also come in a memory foam interface, but in this example, these are all silicone interfaces. And again, the hose can either come over the top of the head or from the front of the nose, and it just depends on what you like. The other thing to be aware about from these nasal the nasal mask, the nasal pillow mask, and the nasal cradle mask is that one should be like it should be easy for them to breathe through their nose. And we can help facilitate the process of nasal breathing by either using saline sprays, or we can use corticosteroid sprays or any anti-allergy medications if you think that the nasal congestion that you have is allergic in origin. Okay, if it becomes difficult to tolerate nasal masks, then we can also refer you to an ENT doctor to see is there anything that can be done from an anatomical standpoint to reduce the amount of nasal resistance and increase sort of the size of the nasal passages. So we've talked about nasal pillow masks, nasal cradle masks, and here are the nasal masks. The third kind of a mask is a hybrid mask. This is something that kind of goes underneath the nose and over the mouth. This is sort of like the second from the last most obtrusive mask. Most people who are mouth breathers do pretty well with this kind of a mask. The benefit of this is that it doesn't sort of put pressure on the bridge of the nose. Sometimes these full face masks can put pressure on the bridge of the nose depending on the shape of the nose, and patients don't like it. This, as you can see, goes underneath the nose, and one can breathe through the nose as well as the mouth, and it typically allows one to have a pretty good seal. Again, the common thing that you're probably noticing now is that these masks that we've looked at so far, they come in sort of two different designs. One where the hose comes off the top of the head, the other where the hose comes from the front of the mouth. The last kind of a mask is a full face mask. This is sort of like the Tom Cruise Top Gear type of interface. This works very well. It just in terms of having a seal. But as you can see, it is somewhat obtrusive. Some patients love them. Some patients don't like them. Again, these masks, the full face mask and the nasal masks, in these examples, they come in what is this sort of a silicone type of interface, but they also come in sort of a memory foam type of interface. And if someone has allergic reactions to silicone, or they feel that silicone is not comfortable, then using an interface where there is this memory foam, that can be a pretty good solution. So these full face masks, the hybrid masks, are good for people who are mouth breathers or mouth and nasal breathers. The nasal mask, the nasal pillow mask, and the nasal cradle mask, those are very good for people who can breathe well through their nose. So I hope this is helpful in terms of what are the different masks that are available and how one can think about sort of incorporating these masks into starting to use CPAP. And if you don't get the mask down the first time, that's completely okay. People will typically go anywhere between 2 to 4 or 5 different masks before they find the right mask that they think is the best one for them. And also, I didn't mention this earlier, each of these masks also comes in a small, medium, large. And also many of these masks have different sizes in the headgear that they are using. So there's many different permutations. The goal is to figure out which mask feels the most comfortable, and then we can figure out what's the right size for you. And lastly, what will be the most comfortable headgear for this mask to be pulled close to you and to have a very comfortable yet secure interface. So let's go to the next slide. So here's some tips that I think are very useful, and I talk about this in clinic all the time, but just wanted to put this out in the form of a video so that you're aware. Tips to get used to your CPAP machine. So the first thing you want to do before you put your CPAP machine is make sure you wash your face. Over the course of the day, there's a lot of debris, oil that accumulates over the skin. And then if there's debris or the pores are obstructed or occluded, and then you put a mask over that area, that's going to make it even more difficult for the pores to be able to have a decent amount of ventilation, or the pores being able, the skin to be able to breathe, and especially if it's clogged. So I've had patients develop, skin reactions, dermatitis, infections that can sometimes happen if the skin is not clean, and then it gets covered for, like that point of contact gets covered for 6 to 8 hours. So please, make sure you clean your face before starting to use CPAP. It's just good for hygiene purposes, and it's also good just for the health of your skin. The other thing to do is once you put your mask on, this is especially important for people who are new to CPAP. When you put your mask on, just try to first step is just to get used to it. I always discourage patients to put the mask on for the first time as they're getting into bed. A healthy practice is, think of it as if you buy a new pair of shoes, you're not going to go run a marathon the next day. You'll put them on, you'll get a feel for them, you want to make sure that they're comfortable, you want to get a sense at how they feel over a course of a couple of hours before you go do some, running type of exercise. The same thing is true for CPAP. We want you to set yourself up for success, and we don't want anyone to put the mask on just before they're going to bed for the first time and develop a negative association around CPAP. So you receive the machine, give yourself a couple of hours. If you have time during the day or a weekend, just put the CPAP machine on. It could be in bed, it could be just sitting on the table, it could be sitting on the couch. Put it on, put the mask on, and just get a feel for it. Use it for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and just try to get comfortable with the airflow, get used to the interface, because we don't want this to be a negative experience, and we don't want one to start developing negative associations around CPAP and sleep, because that can lead to a whole bunch of downstream unnecessary consequences. Okay. Once you get comfortable with CPAP, this will change over a series of months. But in the beginning, it typically takes people a little bit of time to get used to CPAP. So budget a little bit of extra time before you go to bed. This could be 10 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 20. When you get into bed, put the mask on, turn the machine on, and get sort of used to it. And maybe read a book and just sort of try not to think about the CPAP being on your face. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's like, if you've ever worn, so I wear glasses, and I remember the first time when I wore glasses, it bothered me. I could feel the sensation of the glasses being on the bridge of my nose, but now I don't even notice the glasses on or off because I'm so used to it. The same, or like people have experiences with contact lenses, for example. So similarly, our bodies will get used to this, assuming that it's working well for you. But we want to set you up for success. So please give yourself some extra time before you get to bed so that you can get used to the CPAP and the airflow. So here's some information on troubleshooting. And this is specifically true if someone is using a nasal mask. So one of the things that can happen is if someone's using a nasal mask or a nasal pillow mask or a nasal cradle mask, and sometimes with a full face mask, is that one's mouth can open during sleep. And if that starts happening, and if you haven't experienced it yet, there's going to be a whole bunch of airflow that leaks out of your mouth. It's basically like a break in the airflow circuit. And if the mouth opens up, all of this air is going to leak out, and because there will be loss of pressure, the CPAP will no longer be effective. So if one is opening their mouth during sleep, there's at least 2 strategies to try to overcome this. The first is to use a chin strap. A chin strap basically just adds a little bit of resistance to help one keep the mouth closed during sleep. The other is using something like lip tape or mouth tape. This is one example of lip tape, but there's a whole bunch of different ones available. And again, the idea is for one to be able to inhale and exhale through their nose while keeping their mouth closed during sleep. This can also sometimes happen in people who are using a full face mask. If their mouth opens substantially, there will be a loss in the seal will be broken, and air will leak out then also. The next day, machines will typically tell you, and your doctor, if you're seeing someone here at Empower Sleep, will tell you if you've had a significant amount of leak. But we want to keep the leak as minimal as possible over the course of the night, because that improves the airflow, the pressure within the circuit, and it allows us and the machine to treat the sleep apnea as best as possible. This is interesting, and this is very helpful. Using a CPAP pillow, I don't recommend this to everybody, but when I see patients and they're telling me, I like this mask, but the problem that I run into is when I sort of lean into my pillow or sort of like dig into the pillow, the seal breaks and the mask is disconnected, and there's a whole gush of air that sort of leaks through the side and blows into my eyes, or blows into my face, or it blows into my bed partner next to me. So one solution for that are these different kinds of CPAP pillows. And as you can see, these pillows have a little sort of cutout on both sides, and they're designed for people who use CPAP. These cutouts have created some space for the hose. It's created some space so that you can sort of kind of dig into the pillow if that's what you wanted to do, without it causing too much of dislodgement of the mask. So this could be a solution if you find yourself adjusting the mask quite a bit in the middle of the night. Then using a CPAP pillow could be effective and very useful. The other thing, then this patients love if they're running into a problem with this, is using a CPAP hose holder, and this does look like an ugly piece of equipment, but I've seen so many scenarios where this has been a game changer for patients. And as you can see, if you feel like the hose is getting in your way, or it's getting tangled, or if it's getting pinched, or something of that nature, using one of these CPAP hose holders that you can buy online or on Amazon can really help get the hose out of the way, so that you don't feel the extra weight on your head or your face, and also it just doesn't get in your way anymore. And then lastly, and this is important, and the machine itself probably came with a series of directions on this, but it's extremely important to keep your CPAP machine and your hose and your mask as clean as possible. I've heard of stories. I've personally seen patients who they may not clean their mask for weeks at a time, and then they'll start developing a skin rash, and that's basically just mostly related to the lack of hygiene around the mask. But keeping the mask clean, keeping the machine clean, keeping the hose clean is extremely important. These wipes could be one solution for that. To keep the hose and mask clean, there are these, you may have seen these sort of bottle sterilizing units that we use for children. I have 3 young kids. Most of our patients know this, and I'll use them, and we used to use them for cleaning their bottles, but the same idea is also being used and applying to the CPAP mask and the hoses. So one can either buy one of those, there's a couple of different ones available. You see what fits your budget. But I always recommend patients first get used to CPAP, make sure it's something that's working well for you, and then invest in one of these machines if it makes your life easier. Or the easiest thing is clean your face, clean your mask and hose with soap and water when you go for a shower. And that seems to work reasonably well. That when one goes for a shower, they can just take a shower, clean the hose and the mask with soap and water, hang it on the shower head or on the shower pole or something that anywhere you think is convenient, and it's kind of dry and ready to use for the following night. So, but it's very important that, especially if you're sick, like all of these aerosols that you're exhaling, these viral particles, or you don't want to be continuously inhaling those over and over again. So keeping the mask clean is extremely important. And I think that's it. Well, I hope you found this video useful. In this video, we talked about the different kinds of masks, number one. We talked about some different tips and tricks that can help you be successful if you are now using CPAP. And if you have any questions, any comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. We want to continuously make this a better experience for you. And I wish you all the best, and we're here to support you in whatever way we can. Take care. Bye-bye.